Welcome to Timber&Terra. I'm Glenn, and this is my Stihl 391 chainsaw. And when I was cutting, I noticed lost power, the chain wasn't spinning as much, and I quickly realized that my bar wasn't getting lubrication. So oftentimes what can happen is these little holes, one on each side, that made up with the oil port on the power head get plugged. So I looked at that, but it hadn't given me any problems before, so I didn't think that was an issue. And so what I ended up finding was that the actual oil pump is bad. So I had already taken it apart. I'm going to sort of show you basically how I took it apart, and then when I put it back together, I'll do it more methodically. But you take the bar off. There'd be a washer and an E-clip that holds the sprocket on. Sometimes the sprocket and the clutch housing are one piece, and sometimes they're separate. It really depends on the model. And I have the little washer. This is the bearing. The bearing only functions when the saw is idling. Otherwise, these are spinning at the same speed, so there's no need for a bearing. But when it's idling, the engine's turning, the bar is not, so that's when the bearing is functioning. Then there's this piece here, which is the actual drive for the oil pump, and that little thing fits in there. So I'm going to take the oil pump off and show you the difference between this oil pump and a different style that Stihl uses. So the oil pump sits in here. It's fastened by 2 screws, which I had already taken out. The pump will have an inlet port and an outlet port. So this is the inlet port on this particular pump, and this is what's different. This is the outlet port. So this is on a 391, and the other models that I put in the title, or perhaps I put them in the description, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. The various Stihl models that this type of oil pump fits. And then there's a gear here. So when I took this apart, I realized this gear is not turning. This gear should turn relatively easily, and it does not. It turns a little bit, but not easily the entire way around. So this is a new one I got. So you can see here this turns much easier, or I can feel that it turns much easier. I guess you have to trust me on that one. And it also came with the drive. Now I got this one from eBay. It was listed as used, but it said it was new. It was sort of taken apart from Stihl chainsaws that were just disassembled for parts. So this one looks fine. A lot less expensive than buying the Stihl part, and I couldn't get it, at least very quickly. And just this housing here, without this and without this, was $65. I got all of this for $70. So these are sold separately. This piece here just comes out, I'm guessing. It's got a little O-ring. And this piece here, which I didn't really need. This one is fine, but it came with it. So this style is different, and I'll show you the difference. This one comes from my 261, which is a professional chainsaw. So here it also has an inlet and an outlet. But here the outlet is actually fits into the machine right there, and into a rubber piece into the power head. But the suction's the same. The mounting screws are different. You can see that. I don't know why they have to make 2 different styles. Both of these have the adjusting screw, which is accessed from the bottom to adjust the flow rate of the oil. So another thing of note, because I'll probably forget when I put it back together, is the inside of the clutch. This is a centrifugal clutch, so when this is spinning, these springs will elongate as these somewhat weighty pieces of the clutch sort of fling outward, and that's what makes the chain turn. But on the outside of this is where the band is for the this brake here. the chain break. So hopefully you can see as I put this thing in, that right in there, a little red pointer. So right in there is the port that matches up with this, and this is elongated because the bar you can move in and out as the chain stretches over use or wears, so that this is all filled with oil. The actual oil port is right there, but if your chain lubrication hole happens to be out here because the bar is extended, it'll still get oil. And this here goes to the oil tank, so that's sort of the suction of the pump. So there is a black O-ring on that piece, and that will make the seal between this piece and the power head. This rubber piece here generally goes on pretty easily. It's very flexible. But there's not a lot of room in there, so it's good to have a small pair of pliers. See, that one in there nicely. So that is in place. So now all I need to do is put the screws in. I'm sure there are tons of videos on replacing an oil pump, but is one more really going to hurt? Snug them down. These screws are just screwing into plastic, so probably easy to strip that out. So this one, as I said, goes to 261. It was actually, I had when I put this back together, I'll explain the issue I had with my 261, which is why I bought an oil pump, and the oil pump ended up not being the problem. That's why I have a good spare. So next is the pump arm, pump drive arm, I guess. That fits in there. So the pump, it'll go this way. The pump only runs when the chain is going, because this drive arm is connected to the outside of the clutch, and this sprocket only turns when the chain is going. So if this is not turning, then the chain's not going and the oil's not pumping, which is good because otherwise you'd have oil all over the place. So this one says top. I think that always means that. And then this you could screw it in either way, but the only way you're going to grab onto the hex nut is with it this way. And these is left-handed thread. Now there's two ways you can tighten or loosen these. One is to take the spark plug out, and there's this tool here which you stick in the spark plug hole, and this will prevent the piston from allowing the crankshaft to turn, so you can tighten this up with a wrench, or the easy way is just one of these. But remember, it's righty loosey, lefty tighty. And that works well to tighten that. So it's good to see where that the drive wire is, I guess you call it, because that lines up with this. But if you don't get it on there, and this is the issue I had with my other one, it had instead of having this little curly Q thing, it had more of a straight bar, and for whatever reason, and the power head was designed a little bit differently on my 261, this thing was bent enough where it was rubbing on the power head, and it was not engaging in this thing here. So while the chain was going, this would sporadically move every now and then, but it wasn't rotating continuously to pump the oil. So that was the issue that ended up being the problem with my 261. It was not the oil pump, it was that this thing was bent. I don't know how it got bent to rub on the power head. So for this little bearing, this needle bearing, I just put a little bit of grease. Again, it's not a heavily used bearing because it only runs when it's idling, and of course when it's idling it's not rotating that fast. Come on there. Find where that thing is, whatever it's called. I'm sure it's got a name. Okay, and if you don't get it, I don't think this will go down far enough, because then you got to put the washer on. And then there's this E-clip, but normally it should slide in there pretty easily. So the oil pump is in, so now what I'm going to do is start it up, and we should see oil come out of this port here. If it doesn't, then I've done something wrong. Okay, so that is different and better than it was before. I'm going to clean out this hole here. So this is from my 261. This is just a different style clutch housing where the sprocket is actually a separate piece instead of the sprocket being integral with the clutch housing. It'd be neat to see why this is not working. This is pressed together. Looks like there's something pressed in there, something pressed in there, because the pump is in there. Maybe we can extract that copper piece. So in there you can see the adjustment screw. Looks like it's an eccentric of some sort that sort of limits the travel, so it looks like the pump must go back and forth, and the adjustment screw limits how far it can go back and forth. But in order to slide that pump out this way, I'm going to have to somehow remove that. That'll do it. Yeah, this little knob here on the end is not centered, it's eccentric. So depending on where this is, limits how much this thing can go back and forth. So you can see here, or maybe you can't, but there's actually a ramp. So when this thing turns around, it's actually causing this plunger to go back and forth. There must be some sort of check valves and seals in there that basically allow it to pump from there, in there, and out the top. So that's all it does, just goes back and forth like that. And then this limits how much it can go back and forth. Interesting. Okay. I'll save this. This is a good piece. But obviously the pump itself is junk. I don't know why it wouldn't turn. It's not obvious, and I've already broken it. Well, thankfully that was a quick and easy repair. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate it.